Elvis Presley and Colonel Tom Parker are probably the most well-known examples of an artist-manager relationship gone wrong. But this story is not without its bright spots. Elvis and Colonel Parker were simply a bad match from the start, and it's important to learn from their mistakes so that you can avoid them in your business. In today's video, you'll learn a lot about their journey and the most important lessons we can learn from them. Before we begin though, make sure to subscribe to Ocean and Matrix and hit the bell icon for notifications. Now, let's get into it. Every entertainer should go to bed at night and pray he finds a Colonel Tom Parker under his bed when he wakes up in the morning, stated comedian Nipsey Russell when he opened for an Elvis Presley show. But is that really the truth? Joanna Parker, the Colonel's widow, is quoted in the most current edition of the Essential Elvis magazine as being quite kind to her late husband. She said, "The Colonel never once wavered from his commitment to do the best job he could for Elvis. So much has been written in a negative light about how the Colonel did this or did that to negatively impact Elvis in some way, and I can tell you that during the entire time I saw them together from 1969 until Elvis died in 1977, I never once saw a situation where the Colonel didn't do what was in the best interest of Elvis. Elvis never had to do anything he didn't want to do because he was forced or persuaded. As soon as a new project arose, the Colonel made it a point to have Elvis's approval and signature. It's important to remember that the Colonel was an expert in business and Elvis was an expert in music, so they were able to work together effectively. However, Elvis was never taught what to do by anybody, and their relationship was a complicated one. According to D'Agostoni, the Colonel's management approach was successful early on, and things didn't go badly until the latter stages of Elvis's career. EIN, on the other hand, examines Colonel Tom Parker from a more sinister perspective and includes several quotes from Elvis's employees in an essay on Elvis's working relationship with the Colonel. Colonel Tom Parker was one of the most successful show business managers ever, and he was well known throughout the world. He claimed to be a naturalized citizen of the United States, claiming he was raised in the West Virginia carnival town of Huntington after being orphaned as a child. Although Andreas Cornelis van Kujic, Parker's birth name, served in the military, he was actually an illegal immigrant from Breda, Holland, and was not a real colonel. After he was discharged from the military, Parker's first big break in the music industry was a 25% contract deal with Eddie Arnold to manage the up-and-coming country star. Parker's snow job in 1948 was convincing Jimmy Davis, a former country singer turned governor of Louisiana, to grant him the honorary title of colonel. This was the final step in Andreas van Kujic's Americanization. In the eyes of admirers, U.S. television broadcasts from 1956 and 1957 are brilliant examples of the ideal workplace leader. Media innovation had never been that exciting. Elvis Presley gave his earth-shattering TV performances because of Parker's connections to Perry Como, Dancing Dogs, and juvenile antics of the 1950s. The Colonel's attempts to break rock and roll star Elvis Presley into mainstream cinema were likewise pioneering at the time, much as his financial dealings with Presley. To judge Elvis's enormous popularity in the 1950s, one must go no farther than witnessing his electrifying shows and the millions of middle-class Americans who flocked to see him perform. Elvis Presley's musical brilliance and Greek god-like beauty drew legions of devoted followers. This was mostly not due to the work of the Colonel's staff. People's desire for social and cultural change after World War II, along with Elvis Presley's originality, musical ability, and good looks had a significant impact on his rise to fame. As a result of his early 1950s accomplishments, it's reasonable to conclude that Elvis's faith in Colonel Parker and willingness to give him a second chance were linked, as his manager had no way of alerting him to the fact that he had outgrown him. Elvis was completely unaware of the situation. This begs the question, was it right for Elvis to trust this man? In two basic areas, the Colonel is really at fault. The first thing is that the Colonel's later Elvis deals, such as the 50-50 splits and his own boxcar enterprises and tour extras, put himself ahead of his clients' monetary interests. For any manager, this is the one sin that cannot be redeemed. His lack of belief in or understanding of Elvis's true talent was also apparent. For him, this was demonstrated repeatedly throughout his career. It is evident in the way he handled Elvis's 60s film career. A Perry Como-style Christmas show was clearly what he was going for in his 68 TV appearance. The Colonel may have signed the 1969 Las Vegas contract on the coffee table because Parker believed Elvis's incredible performance on the international stage stage, the first night was a fluke, according to legend. When RCA bought out Elvis's royalties on his back catalog in 1973, the Colonel made more money than Elvis. Apparently, the Colonel walked away with $6 million, which is $1.5 million more than Elvis. In any manager-client relationship, this should never happen. Colonel Parker appears to have been left behind as he continued to work his old snowman's deals with people like film producer Hal Wallace and seemed proud of his old-fashioned scams during the mid-60s. Some obvious managerial mistakes in which Parker placed his own profit above musical creativity are as follows. First of all, Parker placed all other pursuits on hold for the duration of Elvis's long-term 60s movie contracts. Second was Parker's decision to prioritize monetary quantity above musical quality. Elvis's insistence on only recording songs on which he had a share of the publication rights was reason number 3. Next is Parker's refusal to meet with or even permit the participation of Elvis's songwriters. Otis Blackwell never met Elvis, and Lieber and Stoller were excluded after Jailhouse Rock for trying to submit ideas without going through the Colonel. And finally, Parker refused to let Elvis go on tour in other countries in the 1970s. A manager's role should be to bring their clients' visions to life in order to excite their target consumers and maybe turn a profit. If Elvis decided to go on a global tour, it was Parker's job to make it happen. It was not acceptable that he invoked security concerns, venue capacity, or the like as explanations for his own failures. After selling Presley's early recordings, Parker remained in charge of managing the Presley estate for the remainder of his life. An examination of Parker's management methods was ordered by a court in 1980, and the study determined that Parker's administration was unethical. Meanwhile, his gambling habits steadily depleted his substantial wealth and he died with barely $1 million in his bank account. The story of Elvis and Colonel Parker is an important lesson in managing artists. If you're just starting out as an artist, it's best to avoid the same mistakes that Elvis made with Parker. Avoiding these types of issues can help you build a successful career with your talent. Also, let us know what you thought about today's video in the comments section. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button to let us know. And don't forget to subscribe to Ocean Matrix and hit the bell icon so that you're notified whenever we post new content. Thanks for watching!